everybody, it's me, MattHawes of the Happy Show, and I'm here again with the latest installment of The Happy Story.
Welcome to.
Hey, this is Happy Show again.
Welcome to The Happy Show.
Let's go on right now. Woohoo! Yeah! So I had bought my own high-8 camera, and I decided to make a format change after having made a change to the title of the show. No longer was it the MattHawes Show, now it is The Happy Show.
Hi, kids, and welcome to the Happy Show. We're gonna do lots of things today, including talking about lots of things. And then we're gonna probably see lots of things. And then we're gonna talk about more things. And then we're going to what the hell?
I had my friend Robert there. He's going to be my co-host, and we're going to banter. The whole idea in my mind is we're going to open the show, and we're going to banter back and forth and make little observational comments about whatever goings on happens to perk our interest at that time.
Hello, America!
Hello!
Should we do it again?
No! I have to yell if I was you.
You want to do it?
No, we gotta sing what we're gonna say right afterwards. Because you can't go, hello, America, and then go, Okay.
And then the rest of the show was going to be a variety of different goofy elements connected together to fill out the half hour.
Captain Stardate, blah 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 blah. This is Captain John-Luc Picard, and well, it seems like I'm about ready to retire now because I think that last movie sucked, and so I am relinquishing command of the Starship Enterprise, and I'm relinquishing control to is it Thomas Riker? Do your stuff.
And what happened with David W. Johnson is David was busy doing his own show anyway, so this freed him up, and he kind of stepped back from doing any involvement with the Happy Show. And I was glad to have David a part of the show, and I was glad that in the years to come, David would continue to be an integral part, and he will always be an integral part if he ever wants to be active on the show of the Happy Show from here on. And but at that point, he stepped back for a little bit, and he would come back eventually. And me and Robert were pretty much the focus of the show, and the people putting it on. And I was coming up with ideals to do with the show, and I thought, why don't we do a thing called Robert's Rants for my friend Robert to give him his own spotlight within the program. And that was the thing where, I'll be honest, it was kind of a takeoff of the John Belushi thing in my mind, where John Belushi would go on the news show, the Saturday Night Live news, and he would start to talk about something that irritated him in the news, and, as he's giving his commentary, he'd slowly become more and more agitated, and so much so that at the end he was frothing, basically, and threw himself out of the chair in anger and in a fit. I didn't expect Robert to go to that extent, and admittedly, neither of us is a John Belushi. There will probably never be another John Belushi. But I just had the ideal that it'd be one of those deals where Robert just slowly builds up and just gets all angry about whatever it was.
Oh, hello! How are you? Welcome to this week's edition of Rob's Rants. Like many of you, you have a wife or a girlfriend or just a buddy, and you guys go to the movies. And if you have a wife and a girlfriend, you have to pay for both. It's $7.50 a person to get in. 2 people, there's $15. And if you have kids, that's even more. And of course, you're not going to sit through a whole movie without a soft drink or popcorn. $3.25 for a freaking soft drink. What? $3 for a freaking popcorn. Whoever heard of $2.50 candy bars? $2.50. I could buy a Happy Meal for that. I actually took one back. I couldn't stand it. I took one bite of it, went back up to the stand, and said, give me back my money on this. The dude's like, oh, sir, you're my manager. And what if the movie sucks? And Then you just spent $35 on a sucky movie, and you're just out. I mean, it's a horrible night. You're poor, and you wasn't entertained. Talk about total poopville.
I understood, even at the time, the irony of calling something Robert's Rant on the show The Happy Show. In fact, one thing that's been kind of a common theme is that a lot of things on The Happy Show kind of this weird skew to them, and they're not always really happy, but they're presented in a positive and goofy manner, and it kind of takes that more sardonic edge off of it. But and that's the thing I want to bring up is The Happy Show from the get-go. When I say from the get-go, from the time I decided what the real format was to be, when it got beyond the earliest phase of being a talk show, I decided this was going to be an all-ages program, but it wasn't being supposed to be a kid show. It was never meant to be a kid show, and to this day, a lot of people still misrepresent it or misunderstand it to be a kid show. A lot of it is because of what one of my ideals was for this new format, and that is I wanted a puppet. I wanted a puppet on the show, just to be odd, just to have some goofy segment, and that's what it seems to be in a lot of people's mind, unless you're Jeff Dunham, your thought that if you have a puppet, it must be like Sesame Street, it must be a kid's show. And I thought of myself as more doing the kind of Pee Wee Herman thing as far as how he handled his TV show, where the Pee Wee Herman show on when they first did like an HBO special, it was very adult. It was, Pee Wee Herman actually started Cheech and Chong films as the character Pee Wee and such, and he was just this oddball characterization of Paul Rubens that had come up with, the actor who plays Pee Wee Herman. And so when he created this HBO special, it was this kind of witty but kind of sarcastic and kind of very adult again, kind of satire of the 1950s type children's show. But because Pee Wee had the Pee Wee's Big Adventure and all this other stuff, and it was very popular in the mid to late 80s, when they approached him to do his own TV show, it was a Saturday morning show. And so actually the Saturday morning show he put together was a toned down version of the HBO adult TV special that he had done. It's basically took a lot of the same elements, but it toned them down and made it appropriate for a Saturday morning audience. And for that reason, he became known as more of a child show star, child show. Because he did become a host, because when he took the Saturday morning job, that's what it became. But I was more shooting for in between. Not quite that Saturday morning thing, but not quite the HBO thing. Not quite as adult as the one, not as for kiddies as the other. I wanted somewhere in between there, and I was wanting to do that. And then there was a lot of other shows that inspired me in my youth. There was I love the horror shows that you see. The old horror movies, they don't show them as much anymore. In fact, I don't know of any anymore. But Elvira was a popular host in the 80s and probably one of the most successful of these kind of hosts. But other people know many local area hosts and different affiliates had these guys that would dress up as in monster makeup or some other character, and they would basically be a host for showing old movies. But in between the commercial breaks and at the very beginning and ends of the show, they would do basically this bit as them as the characters. And that was fascinating. I love that feel. Then there was also a show in the 1980s on USA Network on cable television that was called Night Flight. And Night Flight presented all these oddball old films and quirky things and music videos and everything. It was just this hodgepodge of insanity and fun and goofiness. And then there was Commander USA, who was very similar on the USA Network, with showing bad movies and sci-fi and horror and action movies to those horror action hosts. And he's a superhero, and I love superhero and comics, and I'm a comic shop owner again. So I took all this stuff and was wanting to merge this. That was my ideal. The Happy Show be a blend of all these influences, not to mention, whatever other influences, Saturday Night Live, the Marx Brothers, and all of them. Anything I could mix into this, I wanted to mix into this and make it just this wild, freewheeling variety television program. And I wanted puppets. So that was all in my thought, and then I had my co-host, me and my friend Robert, and those segments, but I still needed that puppet. And so what I decided to do was go around the town with Robert and we were looking for parts. I was going to make my own puppet. I didn't know. I already had other characters that were in the form of like other kinds of puppets I picked up, but this one I wanted to be a more distinct kind of puppet. But I wanted it not just to be your typical hand puppet, like a sock kind of puppet. I wanted it to be something a little bit more. And we went around looking for materials, and we couldn't find the materials that would satisfy me, you know. And so I was like, well, darn it, what are we gonna do? And so he was calling his wife for suggestions while we were driving around, and she mentioned to him something that made him kind of go, "Oh, Matt's gonna kill me." And I said, "What?" I said, "Robert, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, you're gonna hate me, but we have a puppet." I'm like, you have a puppet? What do you mean? He's like, "Yeah, me and my wife, we have a puppet that you can use." I'm like, "You do?" And that is where I'll leave this part of the story, and we continue with Happy the Puppet's entry into the Happy Show. Yay!